All right, we're here with Pam Roberts. You're using the Pam Roberts name? Is that what we're doing?
Half.
That's what people know.
I was going to say half the patients that I get still say, who we're getting for a nurse.
Yeah. My daughter-in-law actually wanted to stick around here and meet you because she was so excited just to meet Mark.
That would be lovely.
She was a sweetheart, too.
Yeah.
You missed her by 5 minutes.
And then, of course, Mark Dixon, who's been Mark Dixon for quite a few years. We'll just leave it at
32 years.
Yeah. So now we're going to start with Pam, of course, because
Ladies first.
Well, I was thinking
even though I don't know if the word applies.
And me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we always went when Gene was with us. We always went with Lakeshore Morning Corps, but we were going to go with 2 guys and a broad, but they wouldn't let us do it.
Yeah, that wasn't politically correct at the time.
Yeah.
It fit, but it wasn't politically correct.
So there you go.
Okay, so now you figured it out. We talked about this a little earlier, so you remember exactly how you got started in radio.
You guys had to help
and
me.
Which ones you want to leave out?
I was like a bunny rabbit, just kind of bounced around because I never really planned on doing it.
Yeah.
And the whole time that I was doing radio, I mean, from day one, my dad always said, I'll know you're serious about it, and it actually means something when you're working at MUS, because that was always his station.
Okay.
Yeah. That was his level of success. Once you got there at MUS, then you made it.
Then you made it.
Well, so I was successful 3 times when I was there.
Wow. See, he would have loved you.
So I was part-time, but still. Yeah. Anyway,
my background history all the way back to school, from the time that I was young enough to really do anything, was theater. So I had a lot of theater background. SHN, my local radio station, Stu Nordyke owned it at the time. They gave me a call one day and said, hey, would you come down and do some voiceovers for the morning show guy? And I was like, well, fine. Yeah, I don't mind a bit. And went in, did that. Their news director got a hold of the tape, said, wow, she's got a strong voice. I really could use a female with a strong voice. And at the time, I was working kind of part-time summers as a YMCA counselor out of Chicago. And while I was there doing the voiceovers, he said, what do you think? I mean, I've been listening to this tape, and you think maybe you'd like to come in and do radio? And he, of course, says, radio full-time? And I'm like, and I remember looking at him and saying, I really don't want to be one of you guys. I don't think so. And he said, well, we'll pay you to train you and we'll get you back home and you won't have to keep floating back and forth to Chicago every 2 weeks. And I was like, well, let's see, college loan? Yeah, I could probably do that. So I worked there for a little bit. After SHN, I wound up really, really digging it. And I had a chance to get a full-time gig in Muskegon at SHN doing big band. And while I was there, the whole Rock 95 thing came about, and we got them on the air. From there, I jumped.
Do you remember the year or anything? Or
was that SHN that did the big band?
So many years ago. SHN played variety.
Were they in Muskegon too?
They played variety, which meant whatever somebody dropped off that they happened to have on the shelves. Yeah, that's what
requests.
They played. Yeah, variety. That's great. When I was at KBZ, we did big band.
Mm-hmm.
From there, where did I go from there? I wound up working for Fred Tascone at WQWQ, and that's where I got to know some of who I consider to be the greats in Muskegon. I had a chance to work with Bill Stevens.
Okay.
And I had a chance to work with Cliff. Oh my gosh, Cliff Martin, who I thought would just be this
big guy,
towering 10-foot man, and he was like 5'5", 5'6", and just skinny as a rail.
You just don't know what we look like. That's one of the fun things about being on the radio.
Oh yeah,
you can hide behind the microphone.
You're not kidding me. But Cliff had the voice, but he had a heart that he had a heart as big as Texas.
Oh yeah.
So I was really, really lucky to work with those guys. Where did I go from there? I went to Grand Rapids. And eventually was working at KLQ.
Oh, KLQ. Okay.
Yep, working at KLQ with the Q Morning Zoo. I would occasionally do night show, then I would bot back and do morning show, kind of depending on what the need was. They finally settled in, and when they brought Darla J in, we got her all trained and up to speed, and I jumped ship and went over to MUS.
And the very first day on the air, brand new job, brand new employer, brand new partner.
Had tried hiring me like over a course of like 4 years, 3 different times when we finally came to terms.
Her first day on the air?
Yeah.
She was late for work.
I slept in.
And who was it? Rick Beckett called you or called me to find out how she was doing that morning. And late for her first day at work.
And you guys,
nice move,
and this
Pam.
is all on the air. And you guys were like, "Do you have her phone number?" And Beckett's like, "You didn't even get her phone number? Do you know her?"
See, she wasn't supposed to. It wasn't supposed to be Mark and Pam.
No,
that wasn't what the whole thing was. Because I started at MUS in '88. I don't know if you want me to go back and do my background before that.
Yeah, because yours is vast.
But no, I didn't have much of a background. I actually went to college in Ohio. Well, started off, my father was in radio and TV in Kalamazoo at Channel 3 and WKZO for years. Okay. And people would keep asking, "Oh, you can be in radio like your dad?" And I was just, no way, not going to do it. I was going to school for pre-law. And a buddy of mine, who I just saw a couple of weeks ago, he was my roommate, and we went downtown to the one screen movie theater in town, and they were playing the movie FM. I saw the movie FM, and I go, okay, this is cool. So we went back to the college radio station, got it started up because they'd let it go dark for a while. So got that started. And the first time I got a request from a girl that said, "Hey, you sound pretty good on the radio." Sold. Forget law. I am now going to be a poor DJ for the rest of my life instead of making tons of money. Then it was like shortly after that, in 1978, I got my first commercial radio gig in Northwest Ohio, WPNM. Very rural station. So rural that they didn't have air conditioning, or they wouldn't fix the air conditioning, so I had to have the windows of the studio open. And I was doing the morning show there, and cows would literally come up to my window mooing while I'm on the air.
You were lucky, because when I was at SHN, I did afternoons, plus I had to clean the bathrooms and vacuum before I locked up.
Well, I got my first raise was because I agreed to clean the bathrooms.
Yeah.
But so I named all the cows. I had names for all the characters, and I remember sitting there going, one of these days you're going to look back at this and laugh. And honestly, I look back at those days and kind of miss them, because that was, radio was fun back then. So I went from there.
You had records with Q-Burn.
Yeah, Cube, yes.
and now they don't even know what
that was quite
is.
a talent, queuing up a record.
I know.
And
Razor blades,
I was there kind of on and off. I had a little stint as a truck driver for a little while, and I said, no, I got to get back into radio. Then eventually went to Lima, started up a station there. It was called Light 105, and left there. I was asked to leave there. And so I talked to my dad, who was still in Kalamazoo radio, and I said, hey, do you know anybody that's looking? He says, well, there's this guy named Tim Actoroff in Muskegon. He's a good guy, and you ought to send tape and resume to him. I did. Tim called me back, brought us up here, and started March 15th, 1988 at MUS. Okay. On Giles Road at the time. We hadn't moved into the new studio yet. And Tim took me around town. He was showing me all the sites, the Blockhouse, PJ Hoffmaster, all the way down to Grand Haven. You got to see all. I go, this is great, but I'd really like to kind of see the radio station. So he took me downtown to the FMB Lumberman's Bank building, which is where the corporate office was. Because it was Greater Muskegon Broadcasters, who owned stations in Petoskey, Duluth, Plymouth.
Right.
I think there might have been another one, then an AM and FM here in Muskegon. And it was their corporate office. I go, this is fine, because where's the studios?
Studios.
Because where I come from was in a bank building. So I thought nothing about going to a bank. And he says, oh, you want to see the radio station, huh? And I go, I kind of like to see where I'd be working. So we went out there in the swamp on Giles Road, pulled up, and it was a brick building, red brick building with white trim.
It still is.
And
I just drove by it a couple days ago.
It looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
It really does.
I go, oh my God, it's Santa Claus's workshop.
It's still overgrown.
And it's been nicknamed that ever since.
Yeah.
But I remember I almost turned the job down because I'd worked at some nice places, and this by far wasn't.
This was damp.
And Tim goes, okay, I know what you're thinking, but we're building a new place.
Yeah.
We're going to we're remodeling a building. We're going to be moving,
right.
Shortly. And I go, yeah, I've heard that before. But
they really were.
But a little over a year later, it was Easter Sunday of '89, we moved into the facilities over on Green Street. And at that point, I didn't want to leave that old place out there on Giles Road because it had a really cool vibe to it. It was like the jocks against the world. You know, it was just a neat atmosphere out there, and we didn't want to leave it. And but we've been there on Green Street ever since.
Now, when you started there, who was all working there at that time?
At that time, I took over for John Allen.
Okay.
Who he was doing afternoons. When he left to go, I think he went directly to Texas or someplace. I took his position, and I was doing afternoons. It was Mike Murphy and Dan Vandermeid in the morning. Gosh, who did middays? I want to say, I don't know if it was Mike Lample or if it was...
I think it was Lample.
No, who was Tim Gwatz? Can't remember what his air name was. He was a production guy. And then it was me in the afternoons, and then Susan Wolkers.
Sue. Okay.
Who passed?
Sherry Wilson.
Yeah, Sherry Wilson. She passed. I remember every time she came in, after my shift, she had a dirty joke to tell me.
Oh yeah.
Like, I like this job. Yeah, I like this job. Tim Hachterhoff was the general manager. Harvey Netto, loved that guy to death. He was on the board.
Yeah.
We had just a
Harvey
great.
was always good for a joke every morning.
Great
he would
bunch of
stop
people.
into everyone's office.
He wasn't
all
politically
the way
correct.
down the hall. Never.
Yeah.
No, but he was awesome.
Yeah, he was a great guy too. But the first day I met her was on Giles Road. We were still out there.
Yeah, because I actually got hired when you're still on Giles,
Yeah.
and I think the second week you were at the Green Street location
Yeah.
was when I started.
So Chris Roberts, Walt Love, he was all excited because this girl was coming from Grand Rapids, and he was taking her out to lunch, and so he was showing her around the place. And I reached out my hand to shake her hand, and she stuck her nose so far up in the air and snubbed me. It's like, well, you.
And the funny thing is, I don't even
B-word.
remember meeting him.
She doesn't. I know.
I didn't even
To this
remember
day,
seeing
she doesn't
him.
remember that.
I think I was just trying to not trip on things.
And then I was supposed to do a cushy little midday job because I was program director, I think, at that
Right.
time. And it was supposed to be Mike and Pam in the morning.
Right.
Mike Murphy was supposed to do mornings.
But Mike's wife would have none of that.
No. So he ended up leaving. I don't know if he went to LCS or something.
I believe so. Oh, hey, I worked there for a little while, too.
Yeah. But so I ended up, because for a period of time, it was Mike and Mark in the morning.
Right.
And we were just too much alike that there wasn't any variety there. So that's why we wanted to bring in a female.
Fireworks.
Yeah.
Fireworks. Yeah.
Well, and when I hired her to bring her in, the first thing I said was, I want a partner. I don't want a giggle box. If you're going to be part of this show, you're going to be part of the show. You're not just not going to be, because at that time, a lot of the girls on morning shows were giggle boxes.
Yeah.
They were only there to
Yeah.
laugh at the male, head of the show.
Which I'm only laughing if I'm making the joke.
I don't.
Usually at the male that I'm working with. so.
Didn't want that in,
No.
and
We agree.
it worked for.
Yeah.
We figure out 22 years or something together.
Yeah.
that we did?
Yeah, I was counting because I came in 89 and I left in 11.
And at a period of time, you were gone for a period of time, then you came back.
Yeah, that was just a little misunderstanding.
Yeah. But
Not mine.
And then in there, we had Gene Gregory,
They made me do it.
who did the morning with the three of us. It was Mark, Pam, and Gene.
Yeah.
And the Lakeshore Morning Corps, we actually had billboards, had our pictures up and everything. And one year, I don't remember the year, but we actually came really close to winning a CMA award.
Top 5.
Yeah, we were top 5. We had our picture in the program.
Do you still have the program?
I got the program.
I still have the program
Yeah,
too.
got the program.
I still have the dress.
Lost out to some yahoos out of Florida, but it's like, But no, that was a good year, for the
It was.
three of
It
us.
was a lot of fun. We had a blast. We
Yeah,
really had a
Gene
good
was
time.
Gene was great in himself as far as
He was. He was a lot of fun.
He's retired now.
Yeah.
And then I left the show and left the two of them to try to fight it out on the show because I went and did middays, I think, finally. And
Too much alike.
too much alike, too much creative genius between the two of them.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I found that most of the time I was doing afterwards was trying to put out fires
Yeah.
Pretty much.
and
like,
keep
"Mark,
them
come
from
back."
killing each other. But then Gene ended up leaving and back to Mark
came
and Pam
back.
for the rest
Yeah,
of the time.
So that's when we.
Yes. crazy, but all the things we've done over the years,
Where we hung
it's
out.
amazing.
Now, what,
Well, and the funny thing is, you put in so many years together. Like I say, my first anniversary, because I got married when I was at KLQ.
Mm-hmm.
My first anniversary, I spent with these guys because we were doing Radiothon.
The
for
Cancer Society Radiothon.
So I never had an anniversary for like the first, I
Yeah.
don't know, 10
Yeah.
years, I guess. I never got to spend my anniversary with, which may have been a little bit
Stressful.
of what
Yeah.
led to a divorce. Could be. But, I mean, it's, Oscar, it takes over your life. It's not just what you do. You don't just
Yeah.
leave in the morning and go to a job, because it's not 9 to 5. It's not even it's
Yeah.
not even 5 to 5 or 5 to 4. It's
And
like
you can't walk around
24/7.
town and not have people recognize you, and
Yeah.
so you really can't have a bad day. There was one day I was in line at Meijer, and I was having a bad day. I wasn't dressed well. I looked scruffy. It was terrible. And the next person in line say, "Mark, having a bad day?" It's like, oh,
Yep. Yeah, and you just wind up being honest.
So you
but-
gotta always think, kind of like in today's world where we're probably on camera all the time.
Yeah.
There's people that they're looking at you. Like, just today I went out and there's, people I didn't even know recognized me behind my COVID mask.
it's
Still
your
knew who I
voice.
was.
Yeah, your voice.
It really is. It's still the voice. That's still what happens. I mean, because at
Yeah.
the hospital, my hair is up. It's up right now. It's actually really long, but it's wound up under a hat. I've got a mask on. I'm wearing scrubs. I'm wearing blues like everybody else. Sometimes it's a mask and a shield, lead, whatever. And all you have to do is walk in and say, "Hi, how you doing?" And right away the eyes perk up and people will
That's
will
the
just
one
say,
thing about
"Are
the
you?"
two of you, though. You've always had that natural delivery with your own voice. It's not, you didn't really hype yourself at all.
Well, the biggest joke is talk like you talk on the radio.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I am
Being a
talking the way I
puker.
talk on the radio.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty much doing that right now.
Now, what led you to leave? Or do you want to discuss that?
I don't have a problem with that at all. I really, really loved working for Greater Muskegon Broadcasters. That really had everything to do with my leaving Grand Rapids, where it was more corporate, and coming to Muskegon because I wanted to be a part of a community again, with all the benefits, of being a 50,000 watt station. I didn't want to be a 5,000. I wanted to be on a bigger station, but I wanted that hometown approach. I wanted the hometown feel. I wanted that bonding, and I wanted to work for owners that really cared about the community that they lived in as well. And I've never found owners that cared more than GMB. And
Lillian Boonstra.
oh, I mean,
she
we
was
would
a
spend
sweetheart.
Christmases at Harvey's, and and Lillian would invite us over all the time. I mean, we really seriously became family. And at one point, we wound up being owned by Cumulus for a day.
No,
were we?
they
Citadel for
ran
a
us
day?
for
Which one
they ran us for a
day?
year.
A year?
They ran us for a year. They officially owned us for a day, and then we got swapped out with
Right.
with at that time they were called Clear Channel.
Yep. And the more time I spent with Clear Channel, I mean, they give you a lot of tools, but what they took away, I just wasn't happy with anymore.
Okay.
And then when it finally came down to wanting to take away basically who I was, I said, I really don't think so. And then they wanted more. We went through a period advertising-wise where Mark and I were doing some ads for MCC, Muskegon Community College. And part of the ads that we were doing, part of it evolved into taking classes. And it's something that both of us really, really enjoyed.
At the time, radio was the future of radio was kind of iffy.
Yeah.
And we had already been seeing some of our friends and stuff being let go, and the writing
Well, you're getting older.
writing was kind of on the wall.
Right.
And we both said, okay, what
this would
can
be
what can we do besides radio?
Sure, be a good backup.
So we both went to school. I ended up getting a degree in computer networking. She went for nursing.
Yep.
And so we had a backup just in case what we loved to do went away.
And when they started really pulling the strings and making the changes that neither one of us were really happy with, and I know Mark wasn't really happy with it either, but I was already working at the hospital, it made it really easy to say, you know what? I just don't think so. This just isn't working
Well,
out.
you were trying to do 2 full-time jobs, and that's
Yeah.
not easy.
I was sleeping about 3 hours
Yeah,
a night.
2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
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 And I think you probably, even though I missed you, you probably, made the right decision.
In the long run, yeah.
Yeah.
In the long run, yeah.
But
But it's hard to leave.
it is. It really
it's
is.
really hard to leave.
Yeah, to this day, I miss being on the air. It's all the other stuff. People would come up and they'd say, "Oh man, what a cushy job! You work 4 hours a day, man. I wish I had a job like that." I go, "Yeah, I'm on the air for 4 to 5 hours a day, but it's all the other stuff that we have to do.
the toughest 4.5 hours
that's
you'll ever
actually
do.
work."
Stuff is a nice way to put it. Yeah.
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 Yeah, because we went on the air. We actually went on. The show started at 5:30, but we were in full swing by 4.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much gathering. There's so much that happens while you're asleep that we had to be on top of
And
before
we
everybody
actually
else woke up.
We actually backed it up and started going on the air at 5. We did
Yeah,
a 5-hour morning
we did
show
that
for a while,
too,
which
yeah.
is kind of unheard of for a morning show,
Right.
because we kind of did a little survey of our own to see when we were getting the calls. We were looking at ratings and everything, and we found that the Muskegon area had a lot of commuters going to Grand Rapids, going to Holland at the time. And so they were on the road a lot earlier. So we go, we need to be there for them. So we opted to go on the air an hour earlier, and it was very successful doing that way.
Talked about it for
I think
all
probably our
about
best
5
ratings
minutes.
were in the 5 o'clock hour.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
really were,
It's-
and we had fun. It was really
Because
nice.
with us, it's all been about the listener, and gosh, all the people. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. All the people we've gotten backstage to meet people. That was the part of the job that I personally loved the best, was getting people back to meet an artist when they've never met a star before. It's like, I love doing that. I could care
The look
less.
on their
I could
face.
care less really about watching the show. I just went to escort people backstage
Yeah.
and make their day. And that's the best part of the job for me was to get them back and seeing people. And I still hear to this day from people saying, remember when you got me back? Well, I don't really, because there was hundreds, maybe thousands of people I got back over the years.
Yep. I mean, we gave away so much stuff.
Oh.
One of the big ones that I still remember is sending listeners out to California.
Do you remember the guy's name?
It's right on the tip of my tongue, too.
Lee Ensminger.
Lee Ensminger.
Yeah.
And his wife. And they were there during the fires.
During the riots,
The riots
out
and
there.
the fires, if you remember that
the
happened out there
ACM
years ago.
Awards, we sent them for the ACM Awards, and the riots broke out that night.
And they sent us video.
and
About a block and a half, almost 2 blocks down the road where the fires were.
And luckily, the guy that we sent them out there with was very knowledgeable, done this a
Yeah.
lot of times, and got our people out of there into safety right away. But that was pretty scary at the time
It
when
was.
they went out there for that.
We did a lot. I don't know. We just, we did so many things. I was on Facebook yesterday, and one of my friends from high school, junior high, did this little ditty where it's like, okay, there are going to be a bunch of questions, and you answer, have you ever done this? Have you ever done that? Have you ever done? And I had about 9 things to add to this very simple list that I'd already answered yes to. And Darlene Kelsch, who was one of our receptionists, we had some magnificent people in the office through the years too. She came back and she said, geez, Pam, is there anything you haven't done? I
Pretty
said, well,
much
you know,
no.
I said, thanks to 35 years in radio, not really.
I mean, we got to ride with a lot of people out at Airfare. I miss Airfare so much. I mean, you got to go skydiving and stuff.
Skydiving, Leo Laudenschlager,
Yeah, the
rode
French
the French
Connection.
Connection,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
I mean, some of these people aren't even alive anymore. Some of them crashed, unfortunately.
I remember back when the Navy would bring, they were guided missile frigates into Muskegon. And the first year, I had a bag phone. I had to pull the antenna out and whatnot. And they asked me if I wanted to ride in with them. I said, sure. And it's like a broadcast. So they took me out on a Coast Guard cutter, pulled up right next to the ship. They didn't stop, which I thought they were going to do.
The rope ladder.
Had the big rope ladder.
Yeah, I was with you on the boat.
And I had to climb that damn thing, and with a bag over my shoulder. And that's not the easiest thing to do.
It was horrible.
Looking down, and I got a fear of heights anyway. Looking down and seeing the rushing water, it's like, no, that was scary. But still, it was one of the fun things to do. And we used to broadcast from the deck in the mornings.
Yeah, USS Glover was the one that came in, and I actually wound up getting engaged to one of the guys that was assigned to me, Tom Dowdican. Yeah, and the funny thing is, we both went on to marry other people, but we are still friends today. Still talk to each other today. So they talk about meeting, some awesome people through the years. I mean, we rode Brahma Bulls. Rode on Shockwave.
At Double J, this was, I wish we had video of this, or maybe I'm glad we don't. At Double J, they used to do rodeos there on Friday nights.
George.
And they wanted to get the three of us, Mark, Pam, and
George the
Jean,
Brahma Bull.
on the bull.
Yeah.
And it was a joke because this thing was so big, so docile, that he never bucks at all. But I go, has he ever had three people on his back before?
Oh, he'll be fine.
He'll be fine. And
He wasn't happy.
yeah, was not happy at all.
And I remember Gene, the city boy, just kept yelling, "Get off! Get off! Get me off this
he
thing!"
bailed and hit the fence, and I guess it looked funny, but it wasn't funny at the time.
But nobody got hurt. So.
Yeah, speaking of funny, there was like back in the day, one of the contests, because radio was always about contests, and people, I still hear them say, why don't you guys do Tradio like you used to, selling stuff on the air? What about Cash Call? The old Cash Call, which was a staple in Muskegon for years and years, where you would randomly pick a number out of the phone book and call it, and if they knew that hour's total, they won it. So you were calling people who weren't necessarily your listeners.
And if you remember, the police department got a hold of us once, and they were able to establish a time of death for a woman who had passed and she lived alone by the fact that she wrote down the cash call amount every single
legal
hour.
pads full of cash.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the guy asked me, he
they
says,
were able to narrow
when did
it
you
down.
give this last total? And I told him, and that's the only way they can narrow down her time of death.
Right.
Because she was so loyal and wrote that thing down all the time.
Amazing.
But it's still,
I had a mother-in-law at that time that did exactly that. Had the radio right on her kitchen table.
Yeah.
Wrote it down every time. She knew it was coming about 20 after, I think it was.
Yeah.
Wrote it down every time.
cell phones were pretty much the death of cash call
Yeah.
because, then
Yeah.
they didn't have numbers in the phone books anymore.
Right.
And so that pretty much ended that. But there's just a lot of fun contests and stuff we did over the years. And remember starting up Moose Fest. That was probably one of the biggest things I was proud of was starting it up. Our first year was out on at Mullally Park.
Name some of the
Billy
people that because when they came they were small.
Yeah.
But a lot of them
Except for
became
Billy.
very big.
Billy was our headliner.
Billy
Everybody
Dean
knew
was
who
a
Billy
headline.
was.
Actually, Billy played Moose Fest 3 times. Billy Dean.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had for the first year, the second year of doing it was at Heritage Landing. Jason Aldean, was the newbie. We've had we had like Justin Moore was there, and I kept track. I got a whole Hall of Fame list of people, and each year, I would highlight people who have had successful careers. And we always had a pretty good track record when it came because we paid them next to nothing to come. That's because it was a free show and we had to try to keep our expenses down.
Right.
And so it was really cool to see who went on.
But we did a lot of stuff like that with brand new artists, and it's like, we're going to take a chance. I remember Brad Paisley coming into the studio, and the girls from Baker happened to be at the radio station
Getting a
at the
tour.
same time, getting a tour, and they chased him in. They chased him down the hall, and I think he wound up in the conference room or in the bathroom with the door shut. Finally, they couldn't get to him. Dirks Bentley. Giving out
Dirks has been in our
giving out his
studio.
email address and begging people to call him and email him and let him know what they thought. And
Garth's been in our studio.
Garrett's been there. Bill Engvall has been there.
Oh, that was one of our fun mornings. Was Bill Engvall was only supposed to come in for one segment, so
One
roughly
segment,
15 minutes.
15 minutes, right.
He stayed the whole show.
And then he came back again a few years later. He
Yeah.
asked if we were doing anything and came back.
And I would run into him each year at it's called the Country Radio Seminar, CRS.
CRS.
Basically, it's our country convention. And
Yep.
I would run into him, and he would tell people, he goes, "Oh man, this guy's listeners are so cool."
So cool.
He said because they would come off the street while he was there on the air, and they would whip out their wallet. He said, "I thought they were going to show me pictures of their kids." He said, "No, they show pictures of their racks, because they were hunters." He said, "Man, they get pictures of their racks. It's
Oh,
the
yeah.
coolest."
Oh, yeah.
Because he was with the Redneck, comedy tour and everything. But the people we've met over the years, it's been amazing.
It really,
And
really is. We had an astronaut
great ride.
stop
It
in
really
one
was.
day.
Yeah,
We've
Al
had
Warden, because he had just passed away in
Yeah,
March.
Yeah.
Not too long ago. Because I was there videotaping that time too.
Right, and
You guys,
and that
so-
was really exciting because at that time we had 3 radio stations all in the same building, and Andy O'Reilly, who was doing mornings at the rock station at that time, was people that don't know Andy don't realize what a huge buff he is when it comes to anything aeronautical. I mean, and he was just flabbergasted.
very cool.
He was
Very cool.
So we had a fantastic day, and Andy went on to spend the rest of the day and the evening, I think part of the next day with him too. He was just dynamite. Who else did we have stop in from time to Little Big Town? I mean, we did a lot of concerts and free concerts all around.
Didn't we have a buffalo in our studio?
We had a
Was it
baby buffalo in our studio.
Because out at the racetrack, they were running buffaloes against horses or something.
They were racing, yeah. And then we also had a monitor lizard, full grown, that came into the studio.
Which, if you know Tim Actroff, he likes things neat and clean. So we were worried that this buffalo was going to leave a deposit, you know.
And as it turns out, the monitor did.
Yeah.
And I just remember Tim's face in the glass.
Yeah.
But it's just it was all the fun.
Yeah.
You never knew who was going to stop by, and we always had an open door policy. So
Pretty much.
if you felt like
Some-
stopping in, stop in.
some great years.
We went through a period where we started doing fishing reports.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we got to know the Bald Houses and the Belters, and then we started turning it into end of season fish fries out in the parking lot. And listeners would come over and swing through the parking lot. And
Yeah, because
have
we'd
fresh
make it
fish with
just
us.
a whole morning about, the DNR would come in and talk. and-
Right.
yeah, it was informational, but yeah, a lot of fun too. And people would drive through the parking lot, which is kind of a horseshoe thing, and in one way and went out the other way, and they'd get some fish and go on their way.
I think the great thing about everything that we did was the fact that it was all about our community. It was all stuff that people that were either passing through the community, whether they were doing concerts, doing shows, doing tours, doing theatrics, or people that lived in our community that did things that you never knew they did.
Yeah.
We just, always had that open door policy to just bring people closer to each other and kind of get the joy of being in the middle of all of it.
People have often asked me, like, well, why didn't you go anywhere else? Why didn't you, go to the big time? And I go,
Why?
Why? I got here. Everything I love to do is here.
Yeah.
Great place to raise a family. The people, and I still, to this day, stand by the fact that we have the best listeners anywhere.
Still.
They were so loyal.
Yeah.
There was one time we actually considered going somewhere else. Pam twisted my arm for us to send a tape and resume to Phoenix. And we almost got that job.
And then we got another offer from Washington, D.C., and then we got offers to syndicate. And we said, you know what, we can't just go neutral and do a show that fits anywhere. Because our
'Cause
show,
we were all about being local.
Our show only fits here.
Yeah.
But in all
Well,
the
I
years
don't know.
that
I might argue with that a little bit. I mean, you guys could syndicate, I think, but I understand when you're.
you have to give up a lot.
Yeah,
And I
right.
don't think that either one of us in all the years that
you-
we spent talking, we
if
just
you
neither one of
syndicate,
us
you
wanted
can't make
to.
those local references because
Right.
the person in another town
Right.
don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, and it just wasn't us. And through the years, not only did we support each other and become family, and our families
The
became
brother she never
our
wanted.
family. Yep. And I was always that pain in the butt little sister. But I mean, we went through marriages together. We went through births together.
I just told her I had my best and worst years in radio with her.
Absolutely. We
Yeah.
went through menopause together.
Oh my God.
We went through mental pause.
Went through her 40th
together.
birthday together.
Yeah.
OMG.
That
That
was-
was not good.
Yeah, we had strippers on my 30th, if I remember right. That was pretty good. But we went through deaths. We've lost parents. We've
lot of friends.
Lost friends. We've
Yeah.
lost listeners. We've lost people that we've worked with. And I
Yeah.
would do it all again. I would do it all again. I mean, there were days when it hurt so much. It was our listeners that really, really
Yeah.
held us up, It was just the
Yeah,
relationship.
the job
It was
helped
the
us.
relationship.
Because we had to put on the good face sometimes. Because
Yep.
a lot of times you're having a terrible day, but the
Yeah.
listener doesn't need to know that.
But there was a lot of stuff that we were also really honest about.
Well, we talked about everything on the air.
Literally.
Our listeners knew our personal life.
Yep.
And they got to know my granddaughter Katie,
Yep.
who rode in the truck and parades with me, and and they just knew our whole family, and they still to this day will ask. And Pam's parents helped out with Moose Fest every year. They became part of the family too.
Yep.
It's like everybody knew Al and Helen.
And I rode mounted division with the sheriff's department at the same time because I had a horse farm. So all the parades and stuff that we would do, and caps that we got to know, some of them I rode with and worked with, and it was just fun. It was just plain fun. Probably the best time of my life.
Can't deny that. So like for me, it was '88 through 2020.
And for me, it was early. We're trying to figure out. I think it had to have been early '89 because you
89.
were in the new building until 2011.
2011.
2011.
Speaking of highlights, I think of our career, one of the highlights, proud moments for me, was 9/11.
Yeah.
I was, I think, on vacation at the time. I was home and was watching on TV. Pam and Gene were on the air with our guy from ABC.
We were actually on hold with
Yeah.
him, waiting to do a taped interview with an artist that was there.
Because we had a guy from ABC Network that was our affiliate at the time.
Yeah. My folks were in New York visiting friends.
And he would set up interviews with stars, not just
Wayne.
not just the country stars.
Right.
That was our connection through Nashville. But this was like the celebrities, and
Oh yeah, Gene Wilder. Was
and
one of our
then
better
what did he come on the phone and said what to you guys?
We were I think we were waiting for Tracy Bird that day, if I'm not mistaken. Gene and I were waiting, and he said, "Hey, do you have your closed caption? Do you have your TV on?" Because we had a direct line with cameras from their building. They had offices there in the ABC building, and it faced the towers, and they also had offices in the towers. And we said, "Yeah," and he said, "Keep your eye on the towers." He said, "I think something just happened. Something just hit, and I don't know what's going on." So, I mean, we made sure that we turned everything, and Gene and I were listening to Wayne and watching the screen at the same time, and the second plane hit, and Wayne said, "We have people over there. This is not an accident. We're being attacked." He said, "I'm canceling the interview. We got to scramble to try and get people out of there and find out what's going on." He said, "Just stay on the air, stay tuned, and we're going to be in touch with you and let you know exactly what's going on." So we'll be going live with a lot of stuff.
So then when we realized, what happened as a cluster, our 3 stations, we all got together and we mobilized, and we got out. We hit street corners, kind of like the old Newsies did, with taking donations and everything, doing blood drives, and it really made me feel proud as a profession because we're always here, for the good times and to play the music and entertain you. But it's those times when
What do you do when
that
something
you
goes
feel
wrong?
like you really earned your license. Your license as a radio station.
Yeah.
And like another year, we had those straight line winds that went through. Power was out for the whole area,
Right.
but because we had a generator, which was a small one at the time, barely kept the studio and the electrical room going.
But it was enough.
And we had to keep feeding oil into it, but it kept us on the air, and we were there with all the emergency information that the listeners needed. And again, that's not fun times, but that's where I always felt like that's what we're here for.
But that's
we're
when
here
you-
when you need us, but also when you just want to have the fun
And
too.
that's when you really knew, the caliber of the people that you worked with when it was time for them to go home, and they said, "Nah, I called home and everything's
We
fine.
lived there.
I think I'm gonna
Yeah.
hang. I think I'm gonna hang out." Mm-hmm. And for the most part,
What do
we
we
all
need?
stayed.
And clients and sponsors, they would bring food and,
Oh, yeah.
and all kinds of stuff.
And listeners would bring food.
One of them brought like a motorhome for us to be in and
Crash in.
stuff. Yeah. But it was just everybody got
effort.
together, and just the whole energy of that whole thing was amazing the whole time.
Yeah.
And those are like the times I feel like we really were here and doing what we were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, good and bad through the years. It's been a great ride.
And do you know any radio station that could do that now?
Could or would?
Or, well, could.
Could, sure. Any station could.
I mean, well, I guess
Would?
I guess would. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no people to do that, though, anymore.
Times have changed.
Yeah.
People have changed.
Not
The way we
local,
listen
anyway.
has
Yeah.
changed.
Not local. Not local.
Yeah, the Clear Channel now iHeart has the capability of running things remotely, and So even if the tower came down, they had portable transmitters and antennas that they can mobilize. So within an hour or two, we could be back on the air, even if our tower came down.
Right.
Okay.
And that was unheard of.
Yeah, it was
Way
really
back
kind
in
of
the
a
day.
cool thing that they had. But there's just not as many DJs around to do the work that we used to do, and love to do that stuff.
And with Pandora and iHeartRadio, people listen in a different way now.
Yeah.
They get their news on their cell phone. You know, they get their updates on their cell phone. They socialize through Facebook. They, you know, times have changed. And we were
Websites.
really, really, really lucky to have kind of closed out that whole
One of-
great era in radio.
One of my favorite things about technology was when websites came around, because at
Yeah.
that point
Yeah.
I didn't have to read them damn school closings, which would take 15, 20 minutes, because we, you know,
Yeah, we did
when we
all of
had when we were on 106.9, we had a much
Sure.
larger signal,
50,000,
and we had to
yeah.
cover all the schools in that area.
5 pages.
And we just kept paring it back. So then we got to the point where, you know, they just got accustomed to checking their website. Now, of course, they get texts from their school that
Right.
they don't have school.
Right.
But all those days, you know, the phone would ring. Do we have class today?
Go to school.
She'd get a little ticked off, to be honest. She goes, "Listen to the damn radio." We do it 4 times an hour. You know, I was like, "But do we have school today?" But yeah, I understand. They were, you know, that's how they used us.
Yeah.
And
We were needed.
yeah.
It was a necessary evil.
Well, you remember KBZ days and probably
yeah.
as far as news goes, as
Oh,
for as school closings
yeah.
and everything there, yeah.
Yeah, I remember
That
being
was-
at KBZ
that was-
and watching the tubes light up one night. Yeah, and hoping that they wouldn't blow while I was there. I remember working at KBZ, and because we were way out on Pontaluna,
Right.
I actually got snowed in 5 weekends in a row from Friday until Sunday night, where civil defense couldn't get to me and get me dug out for 3 days. I was the one on the air, and every once in a while somebody would find a way to get in, whether it was Mike Majeski or Scott Christmas or somebody, and they would bring food. But 5 weekends in a row, just because, you know, it's West Michigan and we get those snowstorms and we get those ice storms, and but by golly, you know, we hung in there and stayed on the air.
Yeah. Yeah, Pontaluna Road, that was quite a trip in itself in the wintertime.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, of course, it was, you know, because they would call and say, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm okay.
Send
okay,
food.
well, we'll
Send
get
food.
to you when we can get to you. And it's like, it's going to be another 3
Now,
days.
did you, speaking of KBZ, did you have to start that generator, the old?
One time.
Okay.
One
Wasn't that
time
like
it
from
was
a
out in the barn.
submarine or something?
Submarine,
It was
yeah.
a submarine, yeah. It was
submarine
scary
engine,
when
yeah.
you started it, too.
Oh, yeah.
It was big and noisy, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was scary.
It was huge.
It's like, really, do I just push the button? Yeah, push the button and hold it.
And pray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I went through all that fun stuff.
Now, you pretty much answered all the questions. I didn't have to ask anything.
Well,
you know,
nice job,
you
partner.
guys are so
We still
good.
got it.
Should we start another show?
The only thing there, if you want to,
I've actually thought about getting a hold of him sometime and saying, "Do you think we ought to do another morning show, just like a couple days a week, just for fun?"
yeah,
I would consider that.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
who knows? Hey, this could be the start right here.
There you go.
Well, he's retired.
anybody's
and
looking, we're available.
He's retired, and I can't wait. So yeah, I've always thought everybody's like, "Well, okay, this is nursing and surgical nursing, and I'm a travel nurse, so I travel all over the country."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What you going to retire from this?" It's like, "Yeah, but I'm working on my third career. Who knows what that's going to be?"
You guys could always Zoom too. There you go.
Sure.
You could
It
Zoom in.
never really leaves you. Once you've got it in you, it's there to stay.
It really is.
The
You
love
only
for
remember
radio.
you only remember the fun stuff. You only remember the important stuff, the tragic times. You don't remember all the work that you had to put in
Yeah.
before and after, because it was just worth it.
All those phone calls from record reps. Oh,
Yeah.
those were fun.
I was going to ask you that as far as being the PD. I mean, for as long as you were.
The boss.
Did you like that? Did you enjoy being the PD?
I loved it, especially in the beginning. MUS, for being a small town station, we had a lot of clout because at the time we were what they called a dual reporting station, meaning we reported to Trade Magazine, Radio and Records, which doesn't exist anymore, and we were also reported to Billboard. The two main things. So if I didn't play a song, that song wasn't going to make it to number one. So they would try to entice me any way they could to get me to play their music. And so that we would go to see showcases of new artists, like Clay Walker was one of them, and we'd go to like Vegas, Chicago, Key West. I mean, we got all over the place to see new acts. That was a lot of the fun stuff, to get to know the acts on a personal level before they really made it. I know Pam got a chance to hang out with Garth backstage before he was really anybody.
And then I saw him every year after that.
Much Too Young to Feel This Damn Old was his first breakout hit.
He was opening for Reba. Allegan.
And didn't he say something to you like, why aren't you out there looking and watching Reba? And she goes, I'm back here talking to you.
I said, I know Reba. I want to get to know you.
Yeah.
So we sat there at the picnic table and talked for a good hour while she was on, and then saw him again the following year, and then saw him again the following year at CRS. And the funny thing was, 3 years later, and I'd seen shows, but I didn't, bother to go any further than just seeing the concert. But when I saw him at CRS 3 years down the road, he stood there and he looked at me and pointed at me and he went, Pam. I was like, wow, you're amazing. The guy's got this brain for people and faces and names. He doesn't forget people.
He has a gift. The Garth's gift is that he knows that you are nervous to meet him. Yeah. He understands. He puts himself kind of in your position of being the fan. Yeah. And so he takes the pressure off you. He turns around and starts asking you questions.
I have defended him to people so many times when they say, Garth Brooks, it's just all show and it's like, you don't know him. This man, if you tell him a sad story, he's going to cry. He is so genuine and so rich and he's so approachable. I think that's what always amazed me about him.
He has a way of making you feel special.
Yeah, he would say to his people that were trying to pull him away, I'm not done yet. I will let you know. Every one of these people stood here, and I'm going to stay as long as they stay. Well, I don't care how long it is.
There was actually a story that Ranger Bob told me when he you remember he worked there for a short time at MUS, and he said you had dragged him along to this, I don't know, convention.
He came to the same convention. I remember one of his buddies had a fart sound effect that they would do in the elevator and watch all these people like.
But he hated country music at that time, and he got to meet Garth Brooks, and that was the one person he was most impressed with was Garth Brooks. Because that was it. There's a huge line, and they waited, and he said he talked to everybody. And made sure that everybody,
And it wasn't just, hi, shake a hand, sign something, move on.
Right. And that's the way most of the meet and greets are, it's we call it a cattle call, because they'll line you up and you go through, hi, shake a hand, maybe get a picture, maybe not, and move you on. And Garth's meet and greets weren't like that. Just recently, last couple of years ago, I had a chance to interview him on the radio and was sharing a story. I introduced him to my new wife and everything, and found out that my father-in-law was a union musician in Chicago, because in the day, if an act would come to town, they had to use local musicians for their band. So he played with a lot of the old guys. I mean, Ferlin Husky and a lot of those old guys. So, and we told him we have a special needs son, and that was a huge Garth fan, and he says, I need to meet him and bring him backstage. So they took us into this side room, and he and Trisha both just spent so much time with us, and somebody comes in and they're going, Garth, the show's ready to start. He says, no, wait, I'm talking with these people. Again, that's his gift, making you feel special. Like in that moment, you are the most important person in his life.
And he's serious, and he remembers things.
That's a gift.
But it's not just that he, that he treats everyone like that. He remembers. So for him to treat everyone like that and to remember so much says that it wasn't just an act. It's not just what he does. It's important to him. It's important enough to remember. Like
you, I'll defend him to my dying breath.
Absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
Sure.
And what about people you've worked with? Do you have certain people that you remember fondly, or?
I can't remember all that. We've tried over the past to put together a list of everybody that's worked at MUS, just MUS over the years.
Right.
That's a lengthy list. Holy cow. It's darn near impossible. But I got to say, probably my right hand guy, Brian Thomas. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been there as long because
Brain.
he's the rock that kind of hold that whole place together.
Yeah.
And he's been amazing. But yeah, so many people over the years. It's hard to pick out any other one.
Lynn Grant. I loved it when Lynn came in because she was that true touch of the South.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's where she grew up. It's where she came from.
I tried for years to get her to use her real voice. But she thinks, being in the North and radio,
Yeah.
take away that Southern accent. I
Yeah.
go, no, use it, embrace it. She never did.
I know.
But it's like, and then I told her, she went through a pregnancy. I go, tell the ladies about your pregnancy. It's like, that's the way they connect to you. But if you open up and let them into your life, then they'll let you into their life.
Right.
Their listeners are really, really forgiving. I remember my first week on the air with you, I saw a poster of...
It was
It was
Winona.
Winona, wasn't it?
It was the
and,
Judds.
And it was the way that she was standing there, and I said, wow, she looks just like my husband, Harold.
Listeners did not like that
They,
very well.
they protect their artists. But she did. She had a very strong jaw.
I have to admit, yeah, she did.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just, I mean, it's one of those things that if you were lucky enough to be part of that MUS family, then you were lucky enough.
Any backstories about, well, we talked about Lynn Grant. What about like D.C. Cavender? You remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, still friends with him.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him or
Is he
talked
still
to him
in radio
years.
or is he?
He's in Christian radio up in Traverse
Okay,
City.
all right.
Well, just outside of Traverse City. He's
Okay.
been there pretty much, since he left us. He
Yeah.
went up that way. So, yeah, D.C., Walt Love, who was the PD when I first started here.
Right.
Chris Roberts.
And with a lot of these guys, we had connections to artists as well. I mean, DC, Diamond Rio,
Yeah.
were really good friends of his. They were at his wedding and in his wedding party. Den Vogel worked for us for a while. Matter of fact, Lynn Grant, Den Vogel wound up getting married, still are.
His brother is
Lynn.
Loretta Lynn's guitar player,
Yeah.
Okay, all
So,
and still is.
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. We had an intern for a while named Katie Shappert. Her name now is Katie Fuller. She's married to the drummer of Florida Georgia Line,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and she's
Sean.
from here.
Sean.
Yeah.
They've got 2 kids. They've got a
Actually,
nice little.
yeah.
They've got a nice little farm now in Nashville, and they actually met at Moose Fest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just a lot of stories, a lot of lives changed.
Yeah. So glad to be part of Muskegon Radio for all these years. I really, honestly, can't see me doing it anywhere else. This has been home.
You guys got to do a podcast now, and right here in Muskegon, find a way to make money, and you
Try
all
to
set.
carve out the time.
Yeah, try to find
Yeah,
a way to
there
make
you go.
money and make
And,
it
you
pay
know,
for
and
itself.
the funny thing was, it was never about the money.
No,
It
No.
never was.
no.
I don't remember ever really haggling about money.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't stupid. You didn't pass up a raise if you got it.
Yeah.
But, we just did what we did.
You'd always made
because we
extra
loved
money
it.
doing remotes
Yeah.
and endorsements for places, but that was the other part of my job. I loved, going out and doing remotes, and that was a chance you actually got to meet the people, the listeners that call you every day.
And every single festival, every single concert, I didn't know where else to be but in the MUS tent. And to this day, I tend to not go to many functions
Yeah.
because I don't know where to be. I don't know where I belong anymore. You get so used to having that spot, and that's where you are, that when I go now, I mean, I kind of wander around like a lost puppy.
Yeah, it's
because
like, I got to pay for concerts now. What's up with that?
Yeah.
it's not just that, but it's not having your place.
Right.
And now that our buddy Ron Van Timmeren's no longer with Celebration Cinemas,
Just talked to him yesterday.
yeah, it's like, because he retired,
Right.
and I used to get free movie passes from him all
yeah,
the time. It's like,
Yeah.
I got to pay for movies now? Come on.
I know. We had season passes all the time for
My
years.
kids
Because-
love me for that.
Because when he was one of the first guys I met in the business, because Pam, my partner, she was going to show me the ropes. Back at she goes,
Yeah, and I worked with Ron back at KLQ.
She goes, I'm going to show you
How to
scam cool gifts. No, we can't use the
We
word.
can't use it.
Yeah, the S word.
The other
Scam
S
cool.
word.
Yeah,
Stuff.
stuff, and because she knew how to do
That's
all
right.
that
I
coming
knew all
from
the
Grand
ropes.
Rapids radio, and
Knew
I
the ropes, knew the people.
Yeah.
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 Want a pair of Adidas? No problem. Make that happen.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Good
you work for it.
You guys did a lot of personal commercials for people too. Everybody wanted you to do their spots.
The endorsements, yeah.
Yeah, the endorsements were fun.
Yeah.
So
Every once in a while, I think I still hear Max Meats.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my old Max Meats commercials, and I still go up there and shop too. So
oh yeah.
yeah. There are places that well, when I do a charter, I still get a hold of, of the guys that we worked with. That's who I book charters with. I mean, so you form those lifelong friendships.
Yeah.
And it has. And, even though I've been out of it for a little bit now, it's like,
Doesn't change.
Doesn't change. And I'm still Mark Dixon to him, even though, surprise, it's not my real name. But, it's like, that's who I am.
Yep.
And she'll always be Pam Roberts.
Right.
And people will say, well, where did you get this radio name? I said, well, I was actually working with you guys, had just nicely started, and it was like, okay, they're singing jingles. What are we going to do?
No,
Wasn't
that's
it?
not the story. That's how
Was
I
that
got my
yours?
name. You got your name because Tim Actroff picked it out of a phone book.
Oh, it was like the first or second time that he had tried to hire me.
With me, they Jam Jingles. They're the ones that always
Yeah,
did the
that's right.
jingles and everything. And
Phone book.
and Tim Actroff had a bunch of names already sung, so he went through to see the ones that hadn't been used yet. And Dixon was one that fit. So from that point on, I was Mark Dixon.
And mine was
She
so
came from a
Dutch and
phone book.
impossible to say and spell that it
Yeah.
didn't matter.
And
So
my
I came
real
out
name's
phone
hard
book.
to pronounce, on the air too. So it's
Yeah.
like I was
It worked.
when I got away from Ohio, where I used my real name because it was known locally. There's sort of the family was from. I said, if I ever get out of there, I'm going to change my name because it's just so hard to say.
And we did.
Yeah.
we
You could have
did.
been Pam Z.
Well, I think that one of the big things that led to my divorce after 15 years was listeners kept coming up to Harold and saying, "You're Harold Roberts," and he'd say, "No, she's Pam Hopkins."
Hey.
And I looked at him and said, "You know what? As Pam Roberts long before I was
Mrs.
Pam
Dixon.
Hopkins.
Yep.
So you may as well get used to it." And he didn't. But I stayed with radio.
And what do our spouses call themselves?
The Nons.
The non.
Yeah, the Nons. They
non-
were because they were the NPs, the
The NPs,
non-personalities.
non-personalities.
Yeah,
So they did their own thing.
Harold
on
and
the side.
Mary, we'd all get together for whatever it was that Mark and I had to do, and Harold and Mary.
Because
would
we were
take
always
off.
working, and they were.
NPs are leaving.
Yep.
And usually we'd find them at the bar.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, but I mean, we all became family.
You knew Walt Love, of course. Now,
Yeah.
why didn't he just keep that name? I mean, that's what a perfect name.
I
Walt
know.
Love.
Well, I don't know. There's a guy that wrote a column in Radio and Records magazine, Walt Love, and I think maybe
Oh, okay.
he didn't want that to be confusing.
Yeah.
And I think he actually had a one opportunity to talk with the guy, and said, "Yeah, I'm Walt Love. I'm Walt Love." So
Yeah,
I think that
Chris
might have been.
Roberts is, but Walt Love, what a
Yeah.
the Dr. Love is
Dr.
in or something,
Love.
yeah.
The problem was every once in a while it'd be, "Oh, were you guys married? No, we're not. We're not even related. No, it's not his name."
Now, did you like the name that Tim picked out for the both of you, or
I did because it kind of it's Dixon kind of sounded a little country to me, like the Mason Dixon line. It's kind of I thought it kind of fit.
Well, when I first came to work for you back in 1990, do you remember the name that Tim picked out for me?
No, I think I picked it out. Bo
No, it was-
Oscar.
Oh, Oscar.
Yeah, that was Tim.
Yeah, did he?
It's Tim, yeah.
Okay. Bo Oscar. Yeah.
Bo
Yep.
Oscar, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
that
just
was-
liked mine
that was
because you could
horrible.
pronounce it. Yeah.
That was horrible because the worst thing about it was you put me out at a remote or whatever to do something. I think it was with DC Cavender, and I went to say my name, and I forgot my name.
Yeah.
So it was live remote, so I didn't know what I was doing. So it was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of those things. I had a hard time remembering that I had two other names that were legal
Yeah.
because I just got so used to Pam Roberts, Pam Roberts, Pam Roberts, and I actually signed a couple checks that cashed as Pam Roberts.
Yeah.
The bank knew me as Pam Roberts. The credit union knew me as Pam Roberts. Nobody had a hard time with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was fun.
You guys should get together though and do something again.
All right. You want to
'Cause
produce
like I
this?
said, I didn't ask any questions here. You pretty much answered them all. They're all right here.
That's
you
it?
answered them all. Yeah.
We answered those and then some.
Yeah. So what are
Yeah.
you guys up to now?
I, being retired, I'm trying to get a studio in my basement so I can do voiceover work for commercials for Channel 13 or commercials for some of these people that still want me to do their commercials,
Right.
or for other radio stations. And a flooded out basement kind of put an end to that temporarily.
For now.
Yeah, for now, but it's going to come around. But I've been, it's something I always wanted to do. Call me crazy, but I always knew, because my wife still has 10 more years before she can retire, is I always wanted to drive cars for car dealerships. I said, when I retire, I love to drive, and it's not about making money, because you don't make a ton of money doing it, but it's like, I always just love driving cars. So that's
Everywhere
what I've been
we
doing
went,
that.
Nashville, CRS, he drove, I fell asleep.
I just love driving. And so, yeah, I get out, get around, and I've met some pretty cool guys doing it. And yeah, it's so that's one of the things I've been up to lately, trying to get more golf in, more bike riding in. And we camp a lot. We got a seasonal campsite up in Hesperia
Yes,
that we love our fifth wheel up there.
I show up every once in a while
Yeah.
unannounced.
Yeah. Well, you're always
Sometimes
welcome.
announced, sometimes unannounced.
You're always welcome. But we can lock the gate so she can't get in if we don't want her.
Yeah, but I know the back way around now. Kim showed me.
Yeah, no.
It's just really nice up there. It's family, and the funny thing is, it's family, and they were listeners, and it's just one great
Yeah.
big world that keeps floating
Listeners,
on
family,
itself.
they're all the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you are going to be a nurse for?
I'm a surgical RN, so
a surgical.
a circulator.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, RN circulator is what they call us. But I took it one step further after kind of learning all the different surgeries that are out there. The only thing I don't do is hearts. I kind of chose not to, but I do everything else, from orthopedics to vascular to plastics and bariatric and laparoscopic and general, and I could go on and on, urology, you
Now
name
is
it.
that starting up again?
It is. It's starting. Yeah, it's definitely getting busier because people put these surgeries on hold for a long time, and there are two things that make that kind of a bad thing. Number one, some of these really are emergent surgeries, but people got so scared that they were more afraid to come in than they were to seek treatment. The other thing is, like for orthopedics, for instance, people that need knees and hips and whatnot replaced and have needed them replaced for, usually they're looking at 8 to 11 months of getting all the information, going through all of the classes and everything. Well, then all of a sudden COVID puts another 3-4 months on it. Now they're starting to favor that side, really favor it, so the other side is going bad. So now they're not just looking at having to have one replaced, but they're kind of looking at having to have two a little sooner than they normally would have. But I love surgery, and I took it a little bit further and decided that I wanted to branch out and learn more, not just be at one hospital. So I travel nurse now all over the country.
And you plan on continuing?
I don't see why not. I've worked in Tucson, I've worked in Mesa, I've worked in Tucson again.
Can you imagine having her as a nurse?
Earlier this year,
her bedside
I-
manner
Yeah.
just has to be a
imagined
riot.
that way back
It's
in
pretty funny,
1984, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The funny thing is, I just got back from California too in February, right as COVID was hitting out there. I finished my contract and we got out and got back home. But I remember one of my old algebra teachers coming in as a patient, and of course, the minute he turned and looked at me and our eyes met, he said, "Oh, God." I said, "It's okay. I'll get another nurse." He was coming in for a colonoscopy. There were parts of him I didn't want to see either. So, but a lot of listeners, and I pretty much go in with the same personality that I always had on the air. It's like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah.
But she doesn't take crap from them either, though.
No, not
Or,
really.
or their families. You've
Or
had
the
to put their families in their
I've
place,
had to put
too.
families in their place every once in a while, but I think some of the things that have been awesome experiences that radio helped me with getting close to people, and of course growing up in the in the weird twisted family that I grew up in. I've lost 4 or 5 patients where I've been the one that's been they're holding their hand as they take their last breaths, and there's a great honor in that. People put their trust in the surgeons and in the anesthesiologists, and they put their trust in us as well to say, no matter what, there's always a risk, but I'm going to be here. I'm not going to leave you alone. And I think that kind of harkens back to the way we looked at the morning show is, you know what, no matter what's going on, we're going to be here. And you're not going to be alone. And if I don't show up some morning, it's going to have to be something pretty darn big that's going to drag one of us away. So it's just kind of a twist on the same sort of lifestyle, you know? Yeah.
So if you have anything else you want to say, what would you say about the morning show and working together?
Do I have to say something nice about her?
We hug now.
Yes, we do hug
We
now.
do. We hug now.
Mike's
Thanks,
It's not a hugger.
thanks to Kimmy.
You know,
Yeah.
I noticed one thing about Mark too. He's actually wearing shoes.
Well, only normally
They're
they wouldn't be.
flip-flops, though. It
yeah,
doesn't
You can kick them
technically
off. 'Cause I was always
count.
known as like the barefoot DJ. 'cause
Always.
Even in the winter, kick them damn shoes off. so they get in
Always.
there.
He hated
Hate
shoes.
Still do. That hasn't changed.
I think for me, you know, I always give him a hard time. I will always give him a hard time until the day he dies. But you know what? I have never had anyone in my life that has had my back through thick and thin, whether he agreed with me or disagreed with me, who was never afraid to tell me how it is, lecture me, tell me when I'm screwing up,
I would
praise
like,
me when I did something right.
I do have one request though. I before I die, I would love for you to at least take my advice once. I've given her advice over time. She never takes it, but she listens to it.
I divorced Harold.
Yeah, I advise you to. I don't think so.
Yeah,
But no, it's been a lot of fun.
It has.
We've
been
but you got to imagine, we're doing a 4 or 5 hour show. We're only talking on the air for a small part of that. We got to talk during the rest of the time. We're there when the songs are playing, so
Yep.
we know each other's intimates. And
that's okay.
yeah, so we
It's okay.
we know things about each other that we could not mention today.
Which is really kind of funny because there are always those handful of people that be like, well, the two of them might be married to other people, but
Yeah. I was
Oh well, but the rumor got out there too that we were married. Yeah.
yeah, which was kind of the funniest thing in the world because we have always looked at each other and said, you were like the last person on my list.
I am so not her type, and she is so not my type.
Which I think
would
is
not happen.
the biggest part of what always made it work was we literally love each other like a brother and sister. Good days, bad days, but if you come against him, you're going to have to get through me. And same thing, if you hurt me,
Likewise.
you're going to hear it from him. And I think that was just God bless me with a great relationship
Loved,
that lasted my whole life long.
Love the 22 years of Mark and Pam, and the friendship continues.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Wouldn't change a thing.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
This has been great.
Yeah, it was great for me too, because like I say, I didn't ask any questions. You guys did it all.
Did that make it easy?
Yeah, it was very easy.
We're always pretty good at just babbling.
Yeah.
I lost my voice and everything just because I've been sitting here.
Do you need something to drink?
Yeah, I got my water.
What fun. It's not Mark
So where is
Dixon
this
PD
catching us
anymore.
from?
Where's what?
Here up? Where's the camera? Or the whole thing?
Wow.
Oh, we have cameras?
Yeah.
Should I leave my hair up? I'll leave my hair up.
Why? You afraid of the
No, I just not sitting here very,
Oh, you afraid your crotch might hang out?
yeah.
He wishes.
Oh,
Yeah.
you manly man.
Kim wishes.
I can put it up a little bit so we don't get your crotch in.
Mine's fine. Thanks for asking, both of you.
A number one clean girl.
That's right. Ain't number one. That's me.
Okay, so
My hair all freaked out from having a hat on all day? Or is it pulled back nice?
You're fine. That works.
It's long. If I drop it down, it's like hot. You've seen it.
I was thinking about the way we're gonna start with you guys, because what I usually do is I do individuals. But since it's the two of you, I thought, can we start with where you started first, and then we'll find out where you started first until you get to the MUS point, and then we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Can we do that?
We can do whatever. This is your interview,
This is
dude.
your interview. We'll do
Well, she's
anything
looking
you
at
want.
my
No, I'm thinking.
my floods in the ceiling.
You know,
yeah.
I'm not even seeing it. I'm thinking, where'd I start first?
Yeah, I know that's hard to do, isn't it?
SHN?
Yeah.
When I met you at the Hilton, that was where were you then? That had to be like 80.
KLQ? Well, I got married in 88 and I was at KLQ. And my first anniversary was doing Radiothon with you.
Right.
So that would have been May of '89. But
Yeah, because I started at MUS in '88,
when in '88? Do you
March
remember?
15th of '88.
And actually, you hadn't been there that long.
Yeah.
So it was probably late '88 when I came over. I think I did about another 2 or 3 months at KLQ.
So that's where you.
At KLQ, and then I went from KLQ. I went over to MUS.
So that's where you started then.
No, you started in Fremont, didn't you? Because
I started in Fremont.
she always said, I started at WSHN.
Wishing
we were a radio
station. Stu Nordyke.
Oh, the Nordyke.
Yeah.
We all had our Nordyke
Years.
years.
Days.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but did you have to date Don?
No,
No, I did.
I didn't have to date
I
Don
did.
or do anything with Don.
I did. And I still had to clean the bathrooms. And then from there, where did I go from there? You're the one that saw my resume.
I never saw a resume on you.
Oh.
No, you were just hired and thrown at me. So.
Oh.
Yeah, Tim loved you and just picked you down.
He
tried to get her for
tried to get
years.
me for
Yeah.
several years. He interviewed like three different times
Yeah.
over a few
I mean,
year
you were
period.
you were the first person he mentioned about how great a voice you had and delivery and all that good stuff. He didn't
That's
say a
all
thing
good.
about Mark. But, you know.
Well, he didn't know me back then.
That was all the
Just
way back
kidding.
to like high
I'm
school
kidding.
theater, and that's how I got
But you
into
also
it.
told me you worked over there
Can't say
on
that.
Ponaluna
Oh yeah,
because you lived around the
that's
corner.
right. I was at
KBZ?
KBZ after
She
that.
can't remember. I
went
gotta
K.
tell.
It's good. Yeah, the yeah. I was at KBZ. I was at KBZ, and
And
Then we put
who was the
Rock
guy
95
that you
on.
worked for
Were
there?
you at Rock 95 then? So you were there
yep,
when it
that
first
was
started over
George Corwin.
there? Okay.
Worked for George Corwin there, and then I went to WQ,
Yeah.
and worked for Fred Tascone,
Okay.
because you might have to help me with this. Fred Tascone. Do you have flashcards?
Yeah. Fred's still alive too, by the
And
way. He's like
then
92
from
years old.
Tascone, I took a 8-month hiatus. I went to the hospital and worked as a suck.
Is it what?
Second shift huck.
Oh.
They call
was
them
gonna
Okay,
say.
what?
Yeah.
second shift surgical huck. They call them sucks. If you're surgery,
Because the
it's
job
suck.
does. Yeah.
Yes, and then I went to KLQ. I spent about 6.5 years at KLQ,
Yeah.
and in between all of that stuff,
Did
and
you,
the Tascone, one time with Tascone and twice while I was at KLQ.
Yeah.
I finally told Tim, if you don't want to come up with the money, don't call me again. Stop wasting my time. And so he did, and then
did you
Came
ever
over and slept
work
in.
at Did you ever work at SNX? Sonny?
I helped put it on the air.
Okay, I thought you did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Z-Rock. But
Okay.
we don't talk about the Waters days.